All right, so here we go. So I have a few stretches, more than I anticipated. I couldn't help myself but write down a bunch of base stretches that I thought would be useful. If you find out that you want to maybe subtract some of the stretches that I have here already, you'll know exactly which ones those are. They might be too much right out of the gate. But for, again, a baseline, we'll start with these stretches that I have. So the first one is just a brachial hang. So what I'm doing is I'm really just hanging, right? Palms are going to be facing forward. I want to concentrate on keeping my stomach nice and relaxed, which is going to allow my hips to move down towards the floor. And what that's doing is creating a little bit of, again, traction, putting a little space in between those vertebrae. Hopefully, if there's any sort of impingement, it will release any sort of pain that you might be feeling. Maybe not initially, but anyway, so here's what we do. Palms forward, just hang nice and easy. Bring your feet up if you need to. If not, like let's say that the stretch is too much to bring the feet up, don't bring the feet up. You can even just touch the toes to the floor, bring them behind you. So you can actually push any resistance that's unneeded. However, if not, just bring your feet right off the floor, hang, breathe, get a little rotation if you want. Ultimately, you're just going to be hanging loose, letting that spine, taking the pressure off those hips. When you're done, bring the feet flat, come up. And you can do a few sets of all these stretches. I might even run through these stretches a couple of times. It shouldn't take any more than 7 to 10 minutes. The next stretch is just a regular flexion stretch. So I have my feet shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent, chest up, chin tucked. All right, so I'm going to move to the other side here. Same thing. Now notice that as I go down, I'm not going to round my back out so much as I am going to try to keep everything relatively straight. Knees are bent, bringing it down. You're going to feel a nice stretch through the lower back, spinal erectors into the hips, glutes. You're going to feel some tension on those hamstrings, especially when you press your feet into the floor. Really activate those toes. Get a nice grip on the floor. That's going to just solidify your base. It's going to allow more stretch in those hamstrings. You probably feel all the way into the calves actually. So once you're here for a little bit, then you're going to come back up. Now if you can't just shoot right back up, I would actually advise against it. Nice and easy. Walk yourself out of the stretch with your hands. Same for all these stretches. Again, you're going to come out of these deep stretches very slowly, because the last thing we want is to have any sort of spasm as we're coming out of these. Next is hip circles. You've probably done a ton of these in Taekwondo. Feet forward, shoulder width apart. Again, it's going to be pretty much staple for a lot of this. Hands on the hips. Now, as I rotate, I'm still pushing my feet into the floor, have a nice solid base, but notice that my head is not really moving. And that's what we want. We want all the focus to be in the midsection in the hips. Now, once we go clockwise, we're going to go counterclockwise. Not pushing too hard either way. We don't want to completely hyperextend, nor we do want to flex too much. Just keep them nice, relatively small circles. As those muscles start to loosen up, you can increase the circumference of the rotation. From there, we have hip tilts, with or without reach. It's really up to you, whatever you feel comfortable doing. Nice solid base, pushing those toes in, hands on the hip. Now, I'm going to go to my right side first. So I'm just going to tilt to the right side. It's going to open up my left hip. Be careful that you're not extended or flexed here. We want to keep relatively neutral in the hips. Now, if you want to increase that resistance, you can bring that arm up and reach. Look at those fingertips. Now, this creates a really intense stretch, so be careful with this one, especially if you're unsure of how that's going to affect your hips and lower back. Now, the other thing is I'm creating a frame on my hip, and what that's allowing me to do is gently push my hip in the opposite direction. Again, you don't need this at all if you don't want to use the reach. Then I'll go to the other side, same thing. push gently, creating my frame on my left side. You can reach if you want. If you do happen to reach, look at your fingertips. You'll get a nice stretch on the whole right side of the body as we make that lateral stretch. Okay, back to center. All right, from here, we have, I call these just knee rotations. You'll see exactly what I mean when I start. With these, feet flat, knees outside my hips, and I'm going to base with my arms. And all I'm doing is I'm bringing the medial side of my knee down to the floor. My hip and my butt come off the floor just a little bit, that's fine. And what I'm doing is I'm getting that internal rotation of the femur. And you're gonna notice right away if those hips are tight. This will, you won't be able to go down maybe far at all on one side, or both sides for that matter. But this is one of those moving stretches that's gonna help loosen up any of those tight muscles in the hip and lower back. From there, I would say you go into just regular butterflies. You put your back against the wall if you need help with support, but if you do it in the middle of the floor without wall, you're going to bring your feet flat, pull your heels in, grip your toes, and just gently work your knees down to the floor best you can. Chest up, chin tucked. 15-20 seconds for most of these stretches. You can do 2 or 3 sets, or however many you like, really. I'd say at least 2 or 3 sets. 15-20 seconds each. Okay, once you're done with this, again, let go of the stretch, nice and easy. Come out of it about 5-10 seconds or so. From the butterflies, I would probably go right into using the wall. So this is an instance where using the wall is just going to, you're gonna have a better fulcrum, better support. So what I do here is I straighten one leg out, right, completely extend it, and then I grab the other foot, bring the ankle just above the knee, not on the knee, just above it, and very gently I'm going to move that knee to the floor. Now this is another stretch where you'll know if those hips are tight. If that knee doesn't go pretty close to the floor, your hips are super tight. And this is actually one of the things that really helped me loosen up the whole hip joint. Again, coming out of the stretch nice and easy, and then we'll switch sides. Extend the right leg, and the left over, just repeat. Another thing to be conscious of is when I am moving that knee down to the floor, I want to make sure that both of my butt cheeks stay firmly on the floor. Because it's easy to get that knee to the floor if if my butt comes up. But we don't want that. We want to just stretch that hip joint. So you see, my left hip, I'm not sure you can tell from the camera, but my left hip is notoriously always more tight than the right. So this may take a little bit of time to really work out. But ultimately, you should be hitting the floor. Okay. Come out of this nice and slow. You can even use your hand if you don't want to use those muscles. Bring it back down so you can extend it. Let's check the list to see what's next. I have just a regular cobra stretch. And this is going to help with the extension of the lower back. Now, if any of these movements create any sharp shooting pain or really uncomfortable, stay away from it. Don't even do it. But this is a really good one. I want to try to get most motions of the hips, at least, in this tutorial. So baby cobra, which essentially you're just going to lay flat on the floor, hands underneath those shoulders, elbows tucked in. You're going to push up gently. Now it's going to create that hyperextension in the lower back. Now, you can stay at varying stages of it, but it's going to require a decent amount of chest and shoulder strength. Ultimately, we want to be able to work extended elbows, locked, push the shoulders away from the chin, and look. Now you'll notice that not only is it stretching the lower back, but also a lot of the abdominal muscles all the way down to the hips. When you're done, you want to come out of it, just go right back to the floor, and you can work your way back. From there, since we just got the extension that way, we can also, if you have some equipment, you can also use a ball for bridging. And the ball is nice. I use this thing all the time. It really helps. But here, just walk back, forward rather. Hands across the chest, feet flat, digging into the floor. Just bringing it back. Nice, big, deep breaths. Expanding that rib cage. When you're done with this one, you can bring your bottom right to the floor. You can get out of it that way. And to do the opposite side, again, we're going to get into it just the opposite way. So I'm here, letting my hips hang, so my knees are going to be off the floor just a little bit. That's going to allow that stretch in the lower back. And to get out of this stretch, just roll back, put some pressure back into your knees. All right. I'd say last stretch that I would do is essentially like a runner's lunge. And this is done right on the floor. This is going to create that extension in the femur. So how I get into this stretch is I have my hands flat or my knuckles, either way. And I'm going to walk my foot up, and I'm going to walk my far leg back. Now as I do this, I'm using the knee as the pivot point, and I'm lunging forward, and you're going to feel a nice stretch in that left side. Now you can bring that arm up if you want. I would avoid too much rotation. Most of it's going to be that forward and down motion. Chest up, chin up. After you're done with this side, you're going to switch. Keep your hands down. Walk your other foot up. Kick that other leg back. Now I'm lunging forward using the knee and getting that extension in the hip. And from the side view, so I'd say start there. You're going to know which ones you can or can't do, and then if we need to make a part 2 or part 3 of this video, we can definitely do that. Start here. Let me know what you think, and hope these work.